What do you regard when putting up a video in order to get more views, likes, shares, etc.? I don't consider any of that. I try to make the best movies I can, and if people watch them, great. If not, as long as I feel good about them, that's all that matters. You should never try to pander to an audience. It will never get you anywhere. Okay, in today's vlog, I wanted to tell the story of this studio space and how it came to be. So it was like 2002, maybe 2003, and I was like 21 years old. I just found my footing in New York City. I had a full-time job where I had a really good paycheck, and I was hired to direct a candy bar commercial. And these weren't just regular candy bars, these were Atkins low-carb diet candy bars. It wasn't a particularly creative job, it wasn't like a super awesome gig, but it was the first really paid job I had as a filmmaker. And the paycheck for the gig was, $10,000, which seems like a whole lot of money. You know what, $10,000 is a whole lot of money. But after I got that paycheck, I immediately quit my job. And it was a really good, really safe job with lots of potential. If someone were to come to me for advice and say, I've got this $10,000, should I quit my day job? My advice would be no. But that's what I did. I quit my day job, I had 10 G's. And I started looking for an office space. And I came and looked at this building, which is in Chinatown in New York City, and they showed me a bunch of spaces in my price range. My price range was $500-600 a month. Can't get much in New York City for that amount of money. And the places they showed me had no windows, they were really small, crappy. They were less than what I had hoped for. And then they showed me this space. And this space was a 250 square foot box. I think it was 14 feet by 14 feet. But it had these two enormous windows that looked onto Broadway. But it was I think it was $1,100 a month. But I signed the lease, I took the space anyways. And after first month's, last month's, security deposit, and whatever other stupid charges they had, I had to pay several months in advance because I had terrible credit. I was left with enough money to last 30 days, to last 1 month in this space. So it was hustle, figure out how to pay next month's rent, or I was totally up this creek. And on top of all that, I had quit my job, so I had no real income source. It was a major leap of faith. But it worked out. I don't know what the first paying job was, but it happened. And the rest is kind of history on the space. This here, this gigantic hole you see, this was in 2007 when I started production on my HBO show and actually had some money. We evicted the woman next door and expanded from our little space into this much larger space, combining the two, making what is now my production studio. I looked through all my old footage, and the only content I could find of this studio space when it was really raw was the raw footage, the unedited footage from a commercial shoot that my brother and I did for a fancy tote bag company called Jack Spade. And to show off the durability of their bags, we thought we would fill up one of their tote bags with fireworks and light it off, and then show that the bag could withstand the explosion. And in the process, we accidentally lit the entire studio on fire. Just as a disclaimer, this was a much younger, much more irresponsible Casey than the adult, married father of 2 that I am today. Please do not try this at home. Staten is an island. It's really not that big, but it's not super easy to get around. The subway is like slow and a little bit complicated. Taxis are hard to find and they're expensive. There's Uber now, but the loophole to the city is a bicycle. On a bike, you can get anywhere you need to be, for the most part in all 5 boroughs, in about 20 minutes. Staten Island notwithstanding. The price for riding a bike is high though. I've never owned a bike for more than maybe a year before it's been stolen. You get hurt all the time, they break a lot, but if you make the choice, if you ride the bike, your relationship with this city is so much better. It's Saturday. The city it's a different place on the weekends. The people look different, they move different, they walk different. The commuters that come here to work aren't here. They're sort of replaced by out-of-towners, visitors that are in less of a rush. The people who do live here, they dress different on the weekends. I don't know if I like it better or worse on the weekends. I probably like it less. I love the manic urgency that is a Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. in New York City, and the weekends just lack that magic. I think the saying is, if you don't show up for work on Saturday, don't bother showing up for work on Monday. But I prefer it, if you don't show up for work on Saturday, don't bother showing up for work on Sunday. Sunday is by far my favorite day in the office. It's the one day of the week where the bloodsuckers and meddlers and time wasters aren't in their offices emailing and calling you and wasting your time. It's the one day of the week where you can really get work done. Monday is by far my favorite day of the week. It's akin to standing at the starting line to a race, where the entire journey, the entire week is ahead of you. You have everything to look forward to. It's all systems go on Monday. Also, I hate Fridays. What keeps you motivated? What keeps me motivated? Well, in short, I'm here. All of my dreams and aspirations are here, and the only thing in between these two is a bunch of work. So tackling that work is a way of moving this needle. That's all the motivation I need. I love progress in any manifestation. Yeah, I've never struggled with motivation, ever. And I can tell you that creating a new movie every 24 hours and releasing that movie to an audience of hundreds of thousands of people is an evolution in filmmaking. See, our job as creators is to further define any medium. Our job is to create the new cliches, not adhere to those that were defined by generations past. And to suggest that this is anything but filmmaking is to highlight some preconceived falsehood around what the very definition of filmmaking is. Cameron wants to know, what is your favorite book? My favorite book is the autobiography of Malcolm X. I've read that book like 3 times, twice in a row, and you can pretty much learn everything you need to know about life in that book. Rebecca wants to know, film school or no film school? What's the best way to make a career in the film industry? The truth is there are no defined paths in the film industry. Meaning, if you could go to school and be taught, here's how to succeed in the film industry, everyone would do it because this is the greatest job ever. What it takes is defining your own path. The best piece of advice I have for someone trying to succeed in the film industry or any creative space is, if you're doing what everyone else is doing, you're doing it wrong. I was a really terrible student when I was in school, and I could never focus. I never cared enough about anything I was doing to do it well. And when I was a kid, I just assumed I was an idiot because that's what my teachers told me. But later in life, when I found something that I really was passionate about, something I really cared about, I had laser focus and did it to the absolute best of my ability and was relentless until I was really, really good at it. So, I don't know what the takeaway is there, but in yesterday's vlog, I mentioned how long these edits take me to do. And there were a bunch of comments that were like, why don't you just have an intern edit it for you, or why don't you have someone else do the edits? Editing is the difference between a pile of paint you bought at a store and a finished Picasso. The edit is the difference between a pile of paper and a pencil and the Iliad, a pile of instruments and the Beatles. There's nothing mechanical about editing. The edit is where the story is told, the edit is where the movie is crafted, the edit is what matters more than anything else. When it comes to sleep, a fool sleeps when he has to, a wise man sleeps when he can. I probably get like 5 or 6 emails a day that say, Casey, if you have any free time, I'd love to take you out for a coffee. Or if you have any free time, I'd love to buy you a beer. And that's very sweet. It's very appreciated and extremely flattering. I thrive on the constant stress that is having more things that I need to do than I have time to do them. I always keep a backlog of things that I need to do just in case I have a free moment so I can do that. I never want free time. Free time is the enemy of progress. I hope that doesn't... Somebody said something mean to me yesterday on Twitter. Here's the thing about being mean. It's a lot easier to be mean than it is to be nice. So mean people, on top of being jerks, they're also lazy and they're uninventive. Being nice takes work. That's why I really like people that are really nice. Someone wants to know, how would you spend the money if you won the lottery? Okay, don't take this the wrong way, but I hope I never win the lottery. I never want money that I didn't earn. Were you scared when you quit your job to become a full-time filmmaker? Okay, that's it. This will be the only question I answer for the rest of this Q&A. I want to talk about risk. As a guiding principle, life shrinks and life expands in direct proportion to your willingness to assume risk. Yeah, I've made some really stupid decisions in my career for my entire career. On a broad plane, they've all worked out. Every time I've quit my jobs, which I've done every time I've had a job, people that I trust most, the people that I love, all advised against it. My dad told me not to move to New York City because it was such a risk. And every time I took these bigger risks, the opportunity for a larger payout was always there. Life is like this super temporary, mega fragile thing. You only get like a nugget of time to really pursue the things you care about. And like I'm 30, and my rule is that the right time is always right now. To put a little meat on these bones, this new company that I don't really talk about, this new company is the biggest risk I've ever taken. I took 5 years of my life to build my advertising career, and I made like a lot of money. I've been doing really great. Look at my YouTube channel, go all the way back. The last branded content thing you'll see was in February of 2014. I ditched it all to pursue something I knew nothing about. This huge risk. And I did it at a time when my wife was pregnant and there was all of this vulnerability and all this scariness in my life. And even now at 33, my dad said, 34, my dad said, Casey, that's crazy. You've got a good thing, don't let it go. But I know that like someday I won't be able to do this. I know that the time is now. The right time is always now. So I had to do it. That's how I feel about risk in general. And that's what the struggle has always been for me, is like identifying risk, identifying fear, and then just smashing through it. Because a fear is looking back and wishing that I had done these things. The most dangerous thing you can do in your career, the most dangerous thing you can do in life is play it safe. I want to tell the story of my HBO show. Why this is part of the narrative behind my new business. This project, this series, this show represented what was my greatest achievement and what is my greatest failure of my career thus far. Okay, here's the super abbreviated story of how the show came to be. In 2005, my brother Van and I met this incredible man named Tom Scott. He's the Tom from Tom and Tom that invented Nantucket Nectars. Nantucket Nectars began with 2 guys named Tom. Yes, that is the Tom. Anyways, that guy Tom had sold Nantucket Nectars and he started this public access TV network. And he asked my brother and me to make a movie about his public access TV networks. The only creative direction he gave us was make sure it's respectable. So we made this movie. movie. It was called The Respectability Tour. We made this movie for Tom, he loved it, and then he came to my brother and me. And he said, let's do something big together. And we said, let's do a TV show. At the end of that year, we took that out to Los Angeles and we shopped it. Most places didn't like it, HBO loved it. So we sold it to them. Okay, quick recap. I was a kid, poor, in my trailer park, making movies with a big dream. A few years later, I sold my own TV show to HBO, the biggest, baddest name in television. This is where my biggest failure begins, because that was by far my biggest success at the time. But HBO didn't air the show for 2 years, and in those 2 years, I did nothing. I did nothing because I had made it. I had sold my show, something I made, to the biggest, baddest TV channel in the business. I had made it. Then they aired the show. I honestly expected my whole life to be different. But the truth is, nothing changed. And then they ran reruns and all that, but it was kind of over in like 6 months. And this is where the most valuable lesson comes in. You never actually make it. There's never any making it. You've never arrived. Like that platitude, the journey is the destination. It's cliche for a reason, because it's really true. I'm just gonna do a little drawing that shows what I mean when I say you never actually make it. Start, and then here is life end. For me, I start busting my chops, and I find this success, and then I get to this place right here, and this is when HBO bought my show. And I thought this was making it. I thought I had made it right there. So I backed off. I stopped fighting, and I just kind of like chilled out and did nothing for a couple of years. And then the show aired, and it was like over, and I looked around, and here's where I was. This is where I learned that like, life does have ups and downs, but you have to keep fighting and busting your ass to go like this. You've got to maintain that. You can never get comfortable, because when you get comfortable, this is what happens. Comfort. This is comfort. Comfort is decline. This is fight. You fight your way up. So when I said that this story has an abstract connection with my new company, I started this new company and there was no reason for me to start a new company. I mean that. I was doing really great. For the first time in my life, I had like some job security. There's no reason for me to start this company. But the desire was there, and the desire had to be respected. I couldn't get comfortable. I had to keep fighting. So that's why I'm rolling the dice, and that's why I'm going for it right now, is because this will never happen again in my life. This is me, and this is the horrible, hard-fought lesson that was my HBO series. So the takeaway, you've never made it. With each success must come a newer and more ambitious goal. You haven't crossed the finish line until you die broke, leaving the world a better place than when you found it. How do you not give a shit about what anyone thinks and just do your own thing? That's a two-part answer to a two-part question. The first part about how do you just do your own thing? In life you have two options. You can do your own thing and stand out, or you can do what you're supposed to do, you can do what everyone else does, and you can fit in. There's nothing wrong with fitting in, but you're fitting into cultural or societal norms that were created by other people. Now, in some cases, these norms are great, but in others, they don't make sense. These norms, these rules, were created by someone just like you or someone just like me. I don't know who created these norms. Chances are they weren't anyone smarter than you or me. And if I'm not a fan of the way things are, I just do my own thing because I trust myself and I trust my perspective more so than that of other people. Part two, how do you not give a shit about what people think of you? I should preface this answer by saying I definitely got made fun of a lot for the way that I look when I was in school, and all those bullies that picked on me are all losers now. So never forget that. People who judge others. especially people who judge others based on things like looks, on whether you're black or white, whether you're Jewish or you're Muslim, whether you are gay or straight, because of their body type, whether they're fat or skinny, whether you have pimples, or whether you have a big butt. These judgmental people, their opinions don't matter because they don't matter. Judgmental people are of a lower moral authority than those who don't judge. And we, people who don't judge, we have a responsibility to crush, to destroy those mean, judgmental bullies. And we do that with an overwhelming positivity, and we do that with our extreme open-mindedness. And when you subscribe to those values, you really stop caring what other people think. Because chances are, if other people are judging you, they're wrong. Let's talk about copycats. Let's talk about rip-off artists. People who copy your original ideas and then pass them off as their own. People who hide behind this idea that they were inspired by your work, but actually just steal it wholesale. I believe in inspiration. My work is inspired by filmmakers I look up to, like Werner Herzog and Steven Spielberg and Stanley Kubrick and Wes Anderson. And if you look closely, you can see that inspiration in my work. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about wholesale theft. The thing about being original, about original ideas, is that it's about looking internally, what motivates me, and finding ideas there. The thing about theft is that you cheat. You just look at what somebody else is doing and say, I'll just do what he's doing, and I'll pretend that was my own idea. The really tough part about that is how much work it takes to be original, how much brain power, how much consideration it takes to make sure you're coming up with ideas that are truly your own, just to have them ripped off, just to have them stolen. And it gets really frustrating when they're stolen by people that have big followings, so a lot of their followings don't know that this work was stolen. There's certainly no credit there, and it's painful. You can copy the mechanics, you can copy a style, you can copy an aesthetic, but rip-off artists can never emulate the heart behind telling a great story, the soul behind something that actually moves or affects people in an emotional way. So there's that. Copycats, rip-off artists, keep original people on their toes. Because what it means is, if you want to stay original, you need to stay way ahead of the curve. You've got to stay so far out there that the rip-off artists are just chasing you down, and they will never actually catch up. I hope this isn't starting today's vlog from like a negative or aggressive place. I'm just frustrated, and I feel a need to share that frustration with you. Thank you for listening. Also, I don't say this to discourage anyone from creating anything. I would just always check yourself and ask yourself, are you copying someone, or are you thinking for yourself? And if it's not the latter, maybe rethink your process. A good rule of thumb is this: if you're constantly being told that your work is a copy of someone else's, you're doing it wrong. And if you're constantly being told that your work is being ripped off by someone else, you're probably doing it right. Life is so much better when you have someone to share it with. When you have family to share it with, it's great. When you have friends to share it with, it's amazing. And if you're really lucky, if you meet a stranger in your lifetime and decide that you want to share your life with that stranger, that's amazing. That is one of the greatest parts of life. A shared life is a great life. I want to share my September 11th story. Now, I've told pieces of this before in other videos. I've referenced this before, but I've never really gotten into like what that time was like for me personally, or what that day was like for me personally. This seems like an appropriate forum for that. First, just like a touch of context. I moved to New York City on June 4th, 2001. Literally exactly on June 4th, 2001. When I moved here, I had a 3-month sublet, so I had a place to stay for 3 months. After those 3 months, I moved into a friend's couch that was in the financial district that was literally a half a block from the Twin Towers. Like a friend's sweet apartment, and he was broke, so I got to stay on the couch. On the morning of September 11th, I remember a noise, just like a crushing noise. And I stuck my head out the window like this, and I just remember seeing paper falling. And then my roommate came running out. He turned on the TV, and there was no news. There was like nothing. He was like, what is that? And there was nothing. And then like, it came on, and it was the first shot of like the building on fire. This is before like terrorism was all anyone talked about. It wasn't even in my scope of consideration. But I immediately like grabbed my bag, grabbed my video camera, which was this, hold on. Which is literally this video camera. I grabbed it and I ran out the door. I remember walking towards the front door of the apartment and my camera was recording. It turned into something that I can only describe as an unbridled fear and confusion and absolute terror. So what I saw, and I remember this like vivid, I could draw you a picture of where everything was located, it's so vivid in my mind, was what looked like car parts, and they were clearly airplane parts, scattered along the street, like pieces of parts. And then there were like pieces of along the street. And there was a guy there was like an EMT or something, and he just had a stack of sheets this high. And he was running around throwing the sheets over that to just cover it. I remember seeing the sheet hitting the ground and then like red coming through the sheet. And I was terrified. Like I was recording with my camera like this, and when that happened, like the camera went down and I was terrified. And I looked up and the building was burning above me, and then I got on my bike and started to ride away. When I got far enough away from the towers to actually like see them, I picked my camera up to film it. And I remember like zoomed in on this shot of all these firefighters just rushing into the buildings. Like them parking their trucks right under the buildings, rushing into those buildings. And that is the most haunting memory of that day, because there's no way any of those guys survived. They're all just rushing in. I biked to my brother's apartment, I grabbed him, and he and I raced to the nearest hospital. We were just like, people are gonna need help, let's go. In the midst of all that chaos, looking down, what is it, 6th Avenue, 7th Avenue? Looking down the avenue, which was my favorite view of the World Trade Center, like this long canyon-esque avenue with these huge, beautiful towers at the end. And I just remember seeing one of the towers fall. And I can only describe it as like, it looked like CGI. It fell, and there was like this long spine, which was side of the tower, just remained. It like fell, and then this just like poof, turned to powder, and it all fell. So that was my day. It's haunted me forever. I always said like there's really only 3 times in my entire life where I remember being scared, like truly scared. 2 are when my first kid was born and my second kid was born, because that's a terrifying experience. And the last time I was really genuinely scared was trying to go to sleep on my brother's floor on the night of September 11th. And all you could hear were fighter jets. Wow! They had Humvees and military personnel outside the apartment because you weren't allowed south of 14th Street unless you had ID. And I just didn't know. I didn't, like the night before I went to bed and I woke up to buildings falling and people dying. And now I'm going to bed again, what's gonna happen tomorrow? And that feeling of terror is very real and has never escaped me. Here's some of the footage from that terrible day. See, this was when, these are the firemen like all rushing in. This is me biking through nearby. These are all people waiting outside. That's the World Trade Center right there burning. That's 20-year-old Casey, scared out of his mind, riding my bike up the West Side Highway to get away from the towers. And there they are burning. Don't take this the wrong way. I was glad to have been here when it happened. Can't imagine something like that having happened and having to read about it or see it on TV. Being here and knowing what that was like is an experience that I hold great value in. Okay, sorry for having the vlog, this part of the vlog be such a downer for today. I felt compelled to share that. For all the romanticizing I do of New York City, there are frustrations, there are times living here is really tough, and those frustrations are really amplified since we had the baby. It's little things like if you want to jump in the car and go to the store, you actually jump into a taxi cab. If you want to go for a walk down the street, you're going for a walk on the streets of New York City, on sidewalks that are like super densely populated with people you don't know. This isn't meant to sound so negative, but it can get frustrating, it can get tough, and it definitely at times leaves you like yearning for some wind that doesn't involve taxi cab exhaust.